Hello, this is the RPG Crawler, and welcome to the promised kind of like just discussion slash rant slash. I'm going to be talking about all kinds of stuff in this particular video. I may in fact split it up depending on how long it goes. I promised this video to my patrons as a makeup. It's going to go live for everybody, but I very much promised it to my patrons as a makeup for putting some stuff out early last month because I was getting really behind. Here it is. It took me a couple days. I said I was going to get it out then, but those who were keen of eye and who watched my December update may have noticed at the end of the update that a certain there was a change of lighting on my outro and such, and that was because certain people, certain of my friends online, decided to ask me at that very moment to watch something which I'd been putting off, and I will talk about it later. And those of you who watch the end of that particular video are probably already have a pretty good idea of what I'm about to talk about. But it's going to be at the end of the video. We'll talk about the shitstorm that happened between then and now in terms of my scheduling. And I have been basically stacked for like 2 days, I think 3 days since I recorded that, and it has just been non-stop busy in my real life, and that has kept me from recording some of the videos that I wanted to, and that's unfortunate, especially because I was in my New Year's resolution was to go ahead and get going on this channel and get everything out on like maybe a semi-professional schedule, and it just is not going to happen this week. Though, in one point, it was not my particular fault because we had a power failure for like 3 hours, right in the block where I was going to record my Let's Plays for this week, because I record them in a block and then I edit them up, and that was like last night ish, around like midnight to like 3 in the morning, and it basically put me off record, even though I had a couple hours at the end where I probably could have. Basically put me off recording because we've been a little bit cold here, because dead of winter, and those of you from up north are probably laughing their asses off right now because I live in like south to southeast Texas, in case you can't tell from my accent, and it does not get cold here. It flat out, it does not get cold here. But we had a little bit of a hard freeze the last couple of days, and yeah, I know, cry me a river. Those people up north are probably saying, because you guys put up with temperatures that I find unbe-fucking-lievable. But it was my house is designed for heat. It's not designed for cold, and so when the power went out and I was sitting here in the dark and it was just getting like colder and colder, because all my heating's electric. So it's just getting really, really like icebox cold in here. It was like more than icebox cold. I think it got down around about 30 degrees Fahrenheit in my room, and I was sitting there going, holy shit. But it basically, when the power did come on and it started warming up in here, I was in no mood to go ahead and spend the last couple hours recording. So I'll get some more Divinity Original Sin recorded, but it'll be like probably tomorrow. I ain't got anything. Oh, I do have something planned tomorrow. I got some more repairs on the house to do tomorrow, but I can schedule a block in and report it. We can start getting the Divinity Original Sin. It'll start going up probably like tomorrow night. Although by the time that you're seeing this on the open channel, you'll probably have already seen him coming down the pipeline, because this is going for my patrons for a couple days at least before then. But see, this is the kind of stuff that happens when I promise something. I promise something and then everything gets in the way, and I'm like, oh my god. I wish that I could stick to a better scheduling, but Jesus Christ. Anyway, now that's just one over. I've been going on about getting a mic for my camera for the past couple of videos, and I had ordered one, and it finally came in. And I was like, oh, yes, it's a really nice mic. It was a really nice mic for the price. I was real cheap on it. I got to admit, I was super cheap on it. Looked nice out of the bag. It looked like it had everything. I hooked it up to my camcorder. It says compatible with camcorders, with DSLR cameras, with smartphones, with basically everything. Went ahead, plugged it in, didn't work. So I go ahead and I take it off, and I'm like, so I kind of jack around with it, trying to get it to work. No go. So I take it off, and I plug it into literally like everything in my room, including my computers, everything in my office, everything I could get my hands on that had like a mic jack. And none of it was working. And so I thought it was a dead mic until the very last one when I put on my old system. And I fired up Audacity, and I recorded some test things, and I was like, oh my god, it's a dead mic. But then I looked, and there was this little tiny little waveform. So I crank it way the hell up, and yeah, it was receiving stuff. It was just almost completely flatlined. And so it says it's universal mic. I was not getting any. I wasn't getting any noise on it. I just wasn't getting anything, and then like what I thought was noise, because all mics have a certain degree of noise, was just my test thing. So it was completely unworkable. I cannot use that mic. I have no idea what universal. This is either a blown mic. This is either a blown one, or they were completely lying with the compatibility. But I saw so many good reviews. This is a well-reviewed little mic here, when I was looking through all of the stuff, and this may be apropos or nothing, but it looks like it's only compatible with, even though it says it's compatible with all this stuff, it's only compatible with very specific ones. And my camcorder, which is a Canon Vixia model, just was not compatible with it. And apparently neither was anything else that I had in this house. So I'm going to send it back. It was incredibly disappointing. What I'm using now is I'm using my old Yeti, but I moved it. So if the audio is coming out better than it was, because I know it's kind of muted in the last couple of videos I did like this, but if it's coming out a little bit better, let me know. I'm going to try and rearrange the positioning a little bit. So maybe I may not need a shotgun mic for this, but I would like one. I would like one, because when it comes right down to it, I would very much like to not have to run my Blue Yeti off my desk and into other places, because it's just a desk. It's a desk mic. It's not meant for this kind of thing. Although I suppose you can make it do all kinds of stuff. Yeah. So that was a disappointment. That was a real disappointment. I hope I can get my money back on it. Let's see. I've been kind of throwing around with some old school gaming. It was the holidays, so a lot of my... I've been running Tomb of Annihilation for my Tuesday night group. And they've been really enjoying it, but scheduling has been kind of iffy, so I ran a couple old school games. I ran an AD&D 2nd Edition game. I talked about this last time. And then I ran a Swords and Wizardry game the other day, and that got me to thinking that I've got some really old school stuff that I kind of want to look into. And from the reception of those games, I can already tell that there's a system that I've been looking for. And in fact, I've got it. I just purchased it. It's a system that's been recommended to me. I actually purchased two things. One of them is an old system, and I'm about to pull it out. It's been recommended to me many times over the decades, and while I did get into the lore and the setting, I never actually got into the system itself. And then there's a modern, it's not really a retro clone, but it's inspired by it. And I am not going to get to do a full review on it, so and I haven't read the whole thing. So what you're going to hear now are like basically my initial impressions on both of these. I may do a full review of one of them, but I'm not sure. Anyway, the old system, the old school system, I actually went ahead and ordered this book from the proceeds from the channel. And I'm going to have a hard time getting my Tuesday group to play it, but I may go ahead and get one of my other groups to play, or I may make a group just to play it once or twice. And I've actually been flipping through it. Haven't really read it in depth, because whenever I review something, and I'm up to my eyeballs in reviews right now, I've got like a platter of like 10 things to review. But when I review something, I read it basically cover to cover and try to get an in-depth understanding of things, which is why I can present to you the reviews that I do. But this one, I've only been kind of flipping through it, and yeah, I know, enough anticipation. It's Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay First Edition. The grim dark setting and like the low fantasy setting of it, and yes, it is a low fantasy setting. Just is something I really enjoy, but I know a lot of my players won't. And you may be hearing me moving the book around in front of me because I think it's like between me and the camera, which is unfortunate. So Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. This was released when I was a kid, man. This was released in I think 88 or so, or even earlier than that. I was like 10. So I'm actually really impressed with how well this book has held up. I ordered. It's not new, but it's like damn near it. The interesting part is that it's got a kind of in-depth system, but it's kind of open to interpretation. So it uses like a percentage-based system, I believe, which was the kind of system that really kind of branched off into other systems. I think Call of Cthulhu uses something kind of similar, but not really. But from what I can tell, it's actually, even though there's a lot of rules in here, there's a lot of open interpretation of them too. And that is something I really enjoy. I enjoy like the grim, dark adventuring. I enjoy the hardcore adventuring on it, and I think that's why I enjoyed things like Darkest Dungeon and like Battle Brothers. In fact, Battle Brothers really reminded me of this one and the other like the clone / inspired system I'm about to pull out. Just from being that gritty, low fantasy feel where like every combat could be really harsh, and that you could in fact hire some mercenaries that were almost basically useless right out of the box, and see what happened to them. Just seeing what you could do with what life threw you, and that's what this kind of. I don't know what the newer editions are like, but that's what this kind of system feels like. And to be honest, for those of you who have ever played the old school D&D, like if you ever rolled like 3d6 down the line, that is the kind of character, and just played whatever it gave you just to see what you came up with. That is the kind of feel that kind of game might have. The other system that I'm going to pull out here is also one that I'm not going to be able to review. It is Zweihander Grim and Perilous role-playing, which states as pretty much as its inspiration the old Warhammer Fantasy, and in fact they kind of tongue-in-cheek poke fun at it a few times in here. I'm not going to be able to review this one just because it is huge. It is at least twice as thick as the Warhammer Fantasy book. And it is just, it strikes me as kind of Warhammer Fantasy, but more. It's like Warhammer Fantasy, it's like they decided that Warhammer Fantasy just wasn't grim and perilous enough, and so they came up with this one. Interestingly enough, I believe there's an SRD for this. You don't have to buy the book. They've got PDFs, and they're constantly going on sale on RPG now. I mean, constantly. And in fact, to the point of almost annoyance, really. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry to the author there. The author is writing and design by Daniel Fox, additional writing by Tanner Yee, whatever. But yeah, I'm sorry. But it's I'm getting kind of like almost weary of the almost. For a while there, it was almost like weekly notifications that this stuff was going on sale on the PDF. I am glad that I bought the book, and I am intending to take a look at it and maybe play it and see how it goes. But I can tell you right now, I'm not going to get around to reviewing it just because I'm not going to have the time to page through this tome. I may review it like a couple years from, like a year or two from now. I don't know if I get to it. But it is fascinating because it does the low fantasy stuff. It does the grim and gritty stuff very, very well. I haven't run it, but when I do these systems, I like play a few test scenarios or whatever. It plays it very well. They do have an SRD, as I said, on I believe grimandperilous.com. I could be wrong. That's off the top of my head. It's probably on the book. Why am I guessing? Why am I guessing when it's probably on the book? And I can look it up real quick. Yeah, grimandperilous.com. And it is Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share Alike 3.0 Unported License. Yes, so I would love to do an in-depth thing, but as I said, I'm going to need the time. But that's the kind of mindset I've been in terms of wanting to run like some really low fantasy stuff, some really gritty kind of grim world type stuff. And my Tuesday group really doesn't swing that well. I got 2 people in there that might like it, but the rest of them probably not. And in fact, when I volunteer to run some of the older school stuff, that group kind of falls apart when I try and run some older school stuff. So that's unfortunate. Talking about low fantasy stuff, and it's actually, I'm probably going to get some stuff, some shit for this, but and it's not really kind of a segue because it's actually kind of like quote unquote high fantasy, but the show that I watched, that people were asking me to, my friends of mine were asking me to watch, was on Netflix. It's called Bright. And it is I don't review movies right off the bat. I may start like talking about a few, just shooting my impressions out there. Especially with the upcoming D&D thing, I may go ahead and run through all the old D&D movies and tell you my thoughts about it, because that's close enough to what I do to I can get by with it. Bright is, I liked it. I really liked it. The premise is basically that Will Smith's playing an LAPD cop in a world where magic and magical races exist. And I'll leave it at that. If you don't want it spoiled, and you're wanting my opinion is that it's not outstanding, but I'm very glad that I took the time to watch it, and I don't usually watch a lot of stuff. So I'm glad I took the time to watch through it. I'm about to do some spoilers on it. Not a whole bunch of in-depth spoilers, but some spoilers on it. So the rest of this video is probably going to be about that. Actually, you know what? Before I get into that, let's go ahead and talk about game scheduling. Those of you who watch me know I have a Tuesday group that I run various things for. I'm running Tomb of Annihilation on. I also run on Wednesday afternoons, a patron game, and I'm running. I'm actually pretty excited because they just got to the mega dungeon on that like today, and I threw some stuff at them that I expected to have way more of an impact than it did, and it did kind of scare them because one of the things that I threw at them was a wyvern, and they just handled it with no problem. And I guess that's what happens when half the party is dwarfs. You can't poison them for anything. But yeah, they handled it real well. And if my other patrons are watching, I still got plenty of slots for it. It's Wednesday afternoons. But I did talk about doing a general viewer one, and I am definitely doing that. Just wanted to let you guys know, or let my viewers know. I'll be looking at the poll. It'll close by the time you're watching this, and you're my viewer. The poll will be closed. It won't be closed because you can't really close them, but I will be taking the results, and I will be looking at whatever system, and I will be spending the next couple weeks setting it up. So expect that in the near future. If you're interested in that, I will put a video out letting you know how to apply to it. Apply for it. I will be requiring at least microphone and headset, or some reasonable facsimile thereof, so we can do voice chat. I will be pretty much requiring English speaking because that is pretty much the only language I know. And a video camera would be a plus, but not required. And I will be putting the viewer stuff up on the channel at some point. Anyway, enough of that. Back to Bright. Spoilers coming up. Bright, buddy cop movie with Will Smith playing an LAPD guy. I'm probably gonna catch some shit for this, but I thought it interesting, like from a general, like a general outlook sort of thing. It seems like the setting in that is actually low fantasy. I know they were aiming for a lot of people were talking about how it's like Shadowrun and stuff, except not without cybernetics, and that's an entirely separate topic. I could talk about that Shadowrun without cybernetics. In fact, let's talk about that right now. Shadowrun without cybernetics is an interesting way to describe Bright, because it just goes to show you how much technology has advanced in the last 10 to 15 years, or hell, since the last 20 years since the original version of Shadowrun came out. It just goes to show you how much technology has advanced that you can take a game that was bleeding edge science fiction / cyberpunk when it came out, and then say that a movie that's set in the modern day is like Shadowrun without cybernetics. Because that, the tone, the feel of it is very much like Shadowrun, but it is the modern day. So that just goes to show you, how much technology has advanced, like in real life, in the last 15, 20 years since Shadowrun came out. Anyway, back to the notion at hand. I don't necessarily agree with the idea that it's like Shadowrun without cybernetics, because Shadowrun, even though it's set decades after magic returned to the Earth, Shadowrun takes the premise that the modern day and the near future society that Shadowrun reflects was shaped by societies that developed in the absence of magic, and then magic returned. Whereas for all of the talk about like the Dark One returning, which is like I'll get into the specific plot points on Bright later, but with all the talk about like the Dark One returning to the Earth and stuff in Bright, that strikes me as a setting where while magic is known, it's incredibly rare, but it never really completely left. You've got the very name of the movie is Bright. It's a slang term for magic user, which implies that magic users are part of the society. And yet, when you look at it, aside from the presence of fantasy races, there doesn't seem to be a lot of general day-to-day magic in the setting. You've got magic users, you've got dangerous wands, you've got freaking fairies running around as little pests. I love that touch. They're basically like garden pests. But there's not a lot of visible, direct magic and its interaction with. There was some magic. There was like the magical pools and the magical trees and that like shamans and such with prophecies and such, but it wasn't. It didn't seem to make a serious dent on the general tone of the progress of technology in society, which you'd think it really would. I'm beginning to wonder about that. I'm pretty sure that they may have gone into it in like they may have put hints of it in the plot, because what struck me about that was that there was a federal magical task force. And yet I'm wondering, with the ease with which, the whole movie is premised over the struggle for this wand. And they say that in the trailer, so I don't think that's that much of a spoiler. But the damage that this single magic user with this single wand does. And in fact, even before she gets the wand, how she, I think it was just as she got the wand, but when he walks in and he sees this like not at the very beginning, but near the beginning, he's walking into this building. He sees the devastation wrought in there, and he immediately calls in this panicked. Not panics. Will Smith don't panic, but he calls in this really startled and concerned, we got a bright here, we got a magic user, repeat magic user. That tells me that it's common enough to be frightened of, and yet rare enough that not every it's a rare occurrence. It's known, but it's rare. And what that fits in terms of tabletop games for me is in this low fantasy feel, this the grim dark stuff, or the old school type D&D where you look at modern stuff and you get this thing called dungeon punk, where it's everybody's every magic user. You got the old magic shop. You got magic items that you can purchase on the sly. You got pretty much anyone can take training in being a wizard or whatever in the 3.5 to Pathfinder days. And then you've got the old school idea of it, where magic was known. It was probably more common in some areas than others, but it was rare enough to still be seen as a danger. It was rare enough to still be seen as an oddity. And I think that means that I think that, and I may take some shit from this, but it seems that Bright is more in that category. Yeah, sure, there's elves and there's orcs and they're well known and such, but you don't see every single I didn't see any magic users amongst the gangbangers. I only saw one magic user maybe amongst the orcs, and he wasn't really doing magic. He was more doing prophecy shit. I know this is spoiler territory, of course, but I didn't really see much in the way of active magic use outside of the wand. So that tells me that the setting that Bright has is closer to Greyhawk than it is to Eberron. Even though you've got the modern technology, even though it's the modern day, and Eberron in similar settings that are real high magic, high fantasy, kind of go towards a modern day feel, the way that magic and magic is viewed and treated seems to be closer to the old school stuff like Eberron and stuff, or not Eberron, like Greyhawk and stuff, where it's known but rare, and I think that's actually a nice touch, and I think that I like the movie. I want to say I like the movie better for it. And I hope there is already a sequel that's been greenlighted on it, and I know they're going to put more magic in the sequel because of the ending of Bright, where the things that are revealed at the ending of Bright. And I'm not going to go into that exact spoilers, but because of the things that are revealed just at the end, and Will Smith's character, I believe that there's going to be more magic in the sequel. I hope they still treat it the same. I hope that they still treat it as a dangerous thing, a dangerous and rare thing. That there's a reason why you don't see them running around down the street. So we'll see how that happens. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, excellent movie. I love the action sequences. I really do. It's Will Smith kicking ass. You can't go wrong with that. Say what you will about the dude's acting. I think he's a decent actor. I don't think the script was as weak as a lot of people said. I laughed. Maybe it's just my lowbrow humor, but I laughed when the one-liners were presented. I didn't think they were that awkward. I think there was some awkward deliveries, but I didn't think they were that awkward. They fit. It was an action movie. It was a fun, waste of time action movie. I think the ending got a little bit confused. I think it's like they were trying to do. It's one of those things where I'm going to say it, and it's been said a couple times, like by other people about other things. It seems like there was a better movie before this movie. It's like it seems like there's all this talk about all this lore about a Dark Lord returning. I do like the way that these cops and these other people are like reminiscing about this stuff that happened like 2,000 years ago. It's like it was yesterday, and that's a common trope in fantasy. When you think about it, if you thought that was ridiculous in the movie, think about it in one of these fantasy games where they go ahead and talk about, oh, this war happened 2,000 years ago. That's exactly what you get in so many fantasy games and fantasy tropes, where you've got the average peasant that for some reason knows how something horrible happened. There's a horrible war 2,000 years ago, and they're still getting over it. So you ever want to know how silly that was? Look at how silly it sounded when they kept bringing it up in the modern setting, the war with the Dark One, like many thousands of years past. That is how silly it really should sound when you go back into this fantasy, when you go back into like a medieval fantasy game and they're talking about something on a similar time scale. Yeah, but I want to know more about the setting. It seems like they fleshed out. It seems like they did some work, and they didn't deviate too far from fantasy tropes. They did not deviate too far from your bog standard fantasy tropes. Like they took the Tolkien crib notes, and then they advanced it, and then they filed off the serial numbers and they advanced it. Feels like that, but it feels like they genuinely did a lot of world building and lore building that they barely touched in the movie. And it just seems, as I was watching the movie, and I enjoyed it, I thought it was good. I'm glad it's getting a sequel. But it just seemed like there was a better movie before the movie. It's a movie I want to watch. I want to watch that movie. I want to watch that Dark Lord prophecy where that orcish farmer unites clans and stuff. I want to see that movie. But yeah, it's one of those ones where if you haven't watched it yet, I don't know why you're watching now. I told you there were going to be spoilers. I'm going to get it in the comments below. So, you put spoilers in it? Yeah, I said that there were spoilers in this. I'll put like a break in there somewhere, I think. But yeah, I want to see the better movie that came before Bright. And I want to see the sequel to Bright. I do. It's a damn good movie. At least for me. It's not like, I may watch it again. And that, for me, when I watch a movie and I want to see it again, for me, that's a sign of a good movie. I'm not a movie critic. What the fuck do you want from me? I know what I like. And what I like are action flicks with some fantasy thrown in. What I like is watching neat effects that don't really seem like too effectsy. The effects. Oh man. There was a lot of sparkles, a lot of that stuff. The effects were not bad. A lot of pyrotechnics. You know what bugged me was the elves. They went Tolkien route with elves, where elves were like superhuman, where elves could move faster, they were smarter, they were more perceptive, they had higher reflexes, and they were possibly stronger, and they were more durable. They went the Tolkien route with elves. And the combat sequences with the elves versus the action sequences and combat sequences that had orcs in them, there was this huge difference, and I kind of wanted to see more orc combat. You start in the front in this spoiler territory. You watch Will Smith cruising through the orc hood, and there's like this orc kid, there's like a little orc kid, like must be like 7 or 8, and he's like bench pressing this like SUV and shit, trying so that people, well, not bench pressing, but he's like just deadlifting this SUV over his head so that the other orcs can run out and get like and just get like some sports, get some ball, sports ball, whatever. Fuck it, I'm a nerd. And get it out. And I'm sitting there watching this and thinking, damn, man, they're making these orcs strong. I can't wait to see an orc just bust out in combat. Don't get excited, man. Do not get excited. They barely ever fight in this movie. Most of the orcs in this movie just stand around looking like fucking brick walls. But there's not a lot of orc combat. But elves, oh yeah, elves. They got the elves like flipping all over the place. They got elves moving super fast. They got elves surviving bullets. In fact, towards the end, you see what it takes to kill an elf, and it's really over the top. And I'm sitting there looking at it, and it's like, man, they actually spend time building up the fact that these orcs are supposedly like real hardcore soldiers and shit. And it's the elves that get all the real, and it may be because the elves in question in this movie are like elite Dark Lord type stuff, or they're like elite, Dark Legion type stuff. But man, the difference in the fight scene, and furthermore, the way that they made the elves like flip around and go so fast and react so fast to stuff, It made it seem a little cartoony to me, and that may just be me. It made it seem a little bit cartoony to me, and I gotta be honest, I don't know how they could have done it better, because when you set your elves up as like these supernatural beings that can move faster than a human, that can just survive all kinds of shit, that may not be as strong as an orc, but they're stronger than a human. That they go into these guys go into a gunfight with knives and win, and they've got magic backing them and everything. But when you set up this scenario where their primary combat style is just moving through so swiftly and just decimating you, or just annihilate. Yeah, I got some. One of my players gave me some shit. People use decimated all the time when they really mean like annihilated. But when you see these elves like just go through and annihilate all the competition, there's no good way to show. I don't know. There's not really a really good way to show a creature type that relies on speed to kill that doesn't end up looking cartoony in some way. And I think the elves in Bright suffer for that. I was not a big fan of some of the. I don't want to say I wasn't a big fan of the combat scene with the elves, because I did like some of the combat scenes with the elves, but the best combat scenes with the elves were the ones where they weren't acting like elves. That was the ones where they were using the guns and they were using the vehicles. Not the ones. Did they use guns? Yeah, they used. There was a couple of they used guns, but they were using like vehicles, where they were using, the environment. When the ones where they were actually going up there with the knives and just like getting through like entire lines of human beings and such. I was thinking. I almost laughed because it looked kind of Looney Tuny to me. That's my gripe. If they do and I know there's going to be more elf combat in the sequel, but I don't know. I wish I could identify some way to make that combat style visually not look like Looney Tunes. And I want to see some orcs kick some ass. I want to see some orcs get in there and rough it up next time. Give me some orc combat in the sequel. Because that's what we need, is when you build up these orcs as these, like, not too bright but pretty durable, pretty tough little things, then damn it, use that. Oh man. But I guess it kind of makes sense, because a lot of the orcs in this thing ended up being like held at gunpoint, and I can understand that if you got a shotgun pointed at you, you're not gonna risk that. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Bright. As I said, if you haven't seen it and you somehow got this far, sorry for spoiling what I did, but I warned you. Go watch it. If you've got Netflix. If you don't have Netflix, I don't know what to tell you. Tell you what, if you want me to go ahead and talk about more movies like this, let me know. I'm not a movie critic, but I like what I know what I like, and I've got a background in fantasy tropes. So hell, I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up here. This was not as long as I thought it would be, but still pretty decent. I hope you've enjoyed it. As I said, you want to see more of these informal vlogs, just go ahead and keep following my channel. I will not substitute like a lot of my stuff for these, but I will do these more often. This has been the RPG Crawler. If you like what you've seen, leave a like, comment if you got feedback, and subscribe for more RPG content, both tabletop and computer. Until next time, take care, and goodbye.